But then I had this genius. I was so smart. I had this incredible plan of how to fix my life. And I decided that I was going to go to the federal penitentiary for 6 months to fix my life. And that was my solution.
Welcome to the free sermon podcast of the Potter's House Church in Virginia Beach, affiliated with Christian Fellowship Ministries. Our vision is winning souls, making disciples, and planting churches. It's Tuesday, where you're going to hear a powerful testimony of God's grace revealed in human lives. Each Tuesday, you'll hear Pastor Adam interviewing pastors from around the world to share the mighty miracles that God has done in their lives to give you hope for yours. We share the stories of the men behind the messages you hear every other day on this podcast. Keep in mind that the free version only includes a portion of the whole testimony interview. To listen to the full version, use the links in the show notes to subscribe via Apple Podcasts or supercast.tech. Every dollar goes to supporting world evangelism. Enjoy today's Testimony Tuesday.
Are you in need of a passport in a hurry? Look no further. Global Passport Express is here to help. With our efficient and reliable services, we can process your passport in as quick as 7 days. That's right, just 7 days. And that's not all. We specialize in visas for many countries, including popular destinations like China, India, and so much more. Whether you're planning a family vacation, a business trip, or your next mission trip, Global Passport Express is your one-stop solution for all your passport and visa needs. So why wait? Reach out to us today at 210-375-7525 to speak with one of our friendly and knowledgeable representatives. They will guide you through the process and answer any questions you may have. You can also visit our website at www.globalpassportexpress.com for more information and to start your application online. It's quick, easy, and convenient. Mention this ad and receive 10% off any of our services. Don't let time constraints hold you back from your travel dreams. Trust Global Passport Express to deliver your passport fast, hassle-free, and with a smile. Global Passport Express, your passport and visa experts. Get ready to explore the world.
Well, we want to welcome you back to the new and improved Taking the Land podcast. This is Testimony Tuesday, and we are joined for this first episode of Testimony Tuesday this year, 2024, with Pastor Angel Ortiz. And we are very blessed and privileged to have him with us. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on.
Well, thank you for taking the time. We do appreciate that very much on this January day. It's nice and chilly over here in Virginia Beach. I'm sure you are in El Paso, Texas, where the sun still shines.
Yeah, it got nice. Weather was a little cold over the weekend, but I was out with a t-shirt today, so.
Okay,
nice.
Okay, very nice. So, Pastor Ortiz, if you wouldn't mind, give us the 5-minute version of the conference-style testimony of you and your wife and where you're serving God, and then after that, we'll jump into your testimony.
Well, my name is Angel Ortiz. My wife is Bernadette Ortiz. We have 4 children, 26, 24, 19, 17, and 1 granddaughter, and she's 10 months old. And so we serve God in El Paso, Texas. We've been pastoring now for a little bit over 27 years now. I've been a missionary, an evangelist, an assistant. I took over a church. And so right now, I currently am an evangelist out of El Paso, Texas.
Praise God. And how long have you been evangelizing?
Well, technically, I've been evangelizing about 2 years now. And the reason why I say that is I came to a conference after COVID, and we were able to plant the church, our first church in Havana, Cuba. We were in Cuba at the time, and we planted a church, but we weren't able to go back. And so, since we were planning on going back, so I began to preach out. I was just here in El Paso, so I was going around preaching out all over Texas. I would cover services, and so I was, all over the place. And then after about 8 months, I finally was able to go back. But by then, my church was doing so well that I went back, and all I did was nationalize it. We were to plant out another church out of that church in Havana. And then we came back home, and then for the next conference, we were announced to evangelize. So, technically 2 years, officially 1 year.
Oh, praise God. Wow, that's amazing. Well, I can't wait to hear about Cuba. Been a place on many people's hearts for a long, long time. So can't wait to get back to that.
Yeah.
Praise God. Maybe you can just share some testimonies from some recent meetings that you've had evangelizing.
I've been, I recently just went down to Colombia, and Colombia is an amazing place. I mean, we're having incredible revival. The cities there, I went to Bogota, has over 2 million people. I went to Medellin,
wow,
over 4 million people, I believe. And so, but the gospel is wide open. People are open to the gospel, healings, pray for the sick, people just get healed. I mean, it's amazing. And the good thing is our churches there are young, and but they already have tremendous disciples. The country is booming, and I think as a fellowship we're planting a lot of churches there, and tremendous need. You can plant 20 churches in a city of 4 million, and just amazing. And the two guys that I went to, are just doing phenomenal. One of the guys, he had just opened his building because he moved from where he was, and he moved it to another little town, and it exploded. The revival, by the end of the revival, the place was full. It's a good problem, but I mean, he's probably already going to have to need another building, and he's just doing very, very well. And so
Amen.
Had some tremendous revival down there.
Well, that's what we want to hear. Hallelujah. That's fantastic. Praise God. God is doing many good things in South America. From Peru, we just planted a conference in the conference in Prescott. We just planted a church back into Venezuela. I was very encouraged by that also.
Oh yeah.
So very encouraging.
Yeah.
Well, praise God. Well, we want to jump back into your testimony, and if you could take us back, maybe share a little bit about where you grew up. What was life like for you as a child?
I grew up here in El Paso. I'm born and raised, El Paso has been my hometown. My father is Puerto Rican, came here in the military to El Paso, to Fort Bliss, married a Mexican lady, my mom. And so then, my father decided to stay here in El Paso. And so, we grew up here. Unfortunately, my father had problems with alcohol and adultery, and so he was in and out of our lives most of the time. And it's sad to say, but the times that he was with us, he was always drunk. He was a very violent drunk. So I grew up in that environment. Just a really, really tough situation. He'd come home drunk and was very violent, would beat my mom, and we saw that growing up. And so we would hide under the bed, and he'd be destroying our home, and he'd hit my mom, and he just would go crazy. And so that kind of made me very angry. And so since I grew up in that, I began to take out my anger on the streets. And so, when he would leave, as a fatherless kid, we grew up fatherless for the majority of the time. Just joined gangs here in El Paso, and like I said, I'm not a very tall guy, but I was very violent, And so I joined the gangs, was, in fights constantly.
How old were you when you
Because
started
of
getting
poverty,
involved in the
it
gangs?
drove me probably as young as 8 years old, 9 years old.
Wow.
We were.
That's really young.
I had an older brother. Yeah, I had an older brother who was about 11, and he was involved as well. And that was my first encounter with gangs. He somebody asked him where he was from, and he claimed a neighborhood, and then and they began to chase us, and we got into our first fight. But I was 8 years old. He was about 11 or 12, and we were fighting these kids, and that was the first time I fought, because of his influence in a gang. But then we decided, I joined the gang as well for protection and try to be a part of something. And so we were already in gangs, and so that was just kind of like a normal in my neighborhood, something very normal to be a part of a gang and hang out with a gang and just do illegal things, crazy things. And that was just kind of, like I say, like a normal thing.
Wow. And so what did that lead to? I mean, getting involved at that young, that age, when it's just normalized and part of the air that you breathe. What kind of things did you get involved in?
Well, you start getting a lot of trouble. You start getting into fights, you get into trouble, and then everybody, crime is a normal thing as well. Everyone in our little gang was, came from poverty, living in very, one of our gangs was called Fatherless. And, that'll tell you everything about all the kids that were in it. So, because of the poverty, you start getting into crime. You start stealing. My brother actually taught me to steal, and in the beginning it wasn't so much just to steal. In the beginning it was just to eat. The first things we stole were at grocery stores, stealing ham and meats, sandwich meats and hot dogs, etc. And but then you start stealing for fun afterwards, and there was all the kids in my neighborhood would steal, and we'd fight, and then but as you start growing up in that, you kind of start graduating into a little bit bigger things. Sometimes we even at a young age we were drinking, and we couldn't buy alcohol, but we'd steal it at the store, whatever we can get our hands on. And then drugs start coming in. I think I was about 10 years old when we first experimented with marijuana, and so that's kind of part. And again, I look back, and I think about it as like, my goodness, but that was just the most normal lifestyle, in my around me, and it was just and like I said, you keep graduating. I remember this one kid mentioned that he knew where his uncle kept money. Turns out his uncle was a drug dealer, would hide money in a suitcase under his bed, and we would break in and steal, not a lot, but just enough to where we wouldn't get caught and they wouldn't miss it, and just we take off to go mess around. And again, this, I'm in 4th, 5th grade, and this is what we're doing. And
wow.
On top of that, we're getting in trouble in school. We're getting in fights. We're disrespecting teachers, and the teachers, they had no clue what to do with us. I was disciplined. My mom knew the principals on a first name basis. She was they called her all the time. She'd have to come in all the time for me, in and out, suspended. My brother was kicked out and sent to an alternative school. And so that was where I was headed as well. And we would move around also. So, I asked my mom many years later, I said, Mom, why did we keep moving around? And she says, well, I didn't have money for rent. And so I went from one school, then I would go to another. And then at that new school, I had to start all over. So I had to prove myself again and get into fights again and get into problems just to develop a reputation. And this is all before sixth grade, you know. And so I just recall that when I got into, I was going to go in. Our school went up to sixth grade, and seventh grade they would bus us to another school, a middle school. Our elementary would end at 6, but they didn't know what to do with me. So one teacher decided to test me, and she found out that I was a smart kid, and they gave me an opportunity after the testing. They said, well, maybe this kid just needs, you know, a bigger challenge. So they placed me in a smart school, and they sent me to a different school, and for seventh grade. But the issue at that other school was that I didn't know anybody. These kids were a little more wealthy, and when I say wealthy, you know, they just had more than 2 pairs of clothes. You know what I mean? Where I grew up, man, you really didn't have much, you know, and so I just felt out of place. And then, you know, on top of that, you know, this is 7th grade, and they were teaching me computers, you know, back with the old Apple IIe's, and a tremendous opportunity. But I would hear of my friends, how they're getting in fights and they're going out with girls, and, you know, all the craziness of middle school. So I convinced my mom to take me out of that school and put me back in my old school. And sure enough, wow. I went back over there and started getting into trouble once more, you know.
Well,
I was going to ask you then, by seventh grade. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your family dynamics, because you mentioned that your dad was not around a whole lot. But what was the relationship like between you and your mom? Did she try to influence you, encourage you, or was she kind of more hands off, or what would you say about that?
Well, she did her best, but her main priority was trying to just feed us. You know, she'd work as much as she could. She actually, you know, would go work in the fields here in El Paso. That's a common thing for Mexican families, to go work in the fields. And she would go work in the fields at 4 a.m, come home at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, you know, cook dinner and get ready for the next day, you know. And so she really didn't have a lot of, she couldn't really help us that much, you know. Her priorities were to survive, you know, maybe pay the rent. Like I said, we would move from places, you know, in the middle of the night because we couldn't pay rent. And so it was a tough time, which, you know, my older brother actually took on a responsibility. You know, my brother was a hustler, and he'd find a way to make money. You know, he would shine shoes, he would mow lawns or steal stereos, you know, whatever it took. And he would help with that. But at that time also, when I was probably like in 7th grade, my mom had my third brother. And so he's about 10 years down the line from me. So we would have to take care of him. So my older brother and myself, we would have to take care of my younger little brother. And so my mom was just trying to provide for us, and we kind of would fend for ourselves, you know, at a very young age. So we kind of grew up a little faster than most because of situations. And my older brother actually would help out a lot in that.
Did you have any kind of religious or spiritual background? Did you ever remember going to church at all?
No.
Nothing, huh?
No, we didn't have. You know, you grew up here in the border or Hispanic town. You grew up Catholic. The problem is non-practicing Catholics. You know,
right.
You know, weddings, funerals, or quinceañeras. You know, that's it. Other than that, you don't go. Now, my brother, though, we were always trying to get into something. So my brother would find out that they were giving out candy at some church, so we'd go, or there was food, or we'd show up, and so we visited places here and there, but nothing very significant. So we had zero religious upbringing, other than, okay, we're Catholics, we go down to the church, and sometimes they kick us out too, because we just get into trouble. We'd find a way to get into trouble. We're just tough kids, just trying to make do. And so there was no religious influence.
One common thread that I've discovered is that even in families like yours, where there was little to no religious background, somewhere along the way there is somebody who is praying for you. Do you know of anybody that was praying for you through these years?
No, you know what? I don't. There wasn't many people that converted or were getting saved at the time. We didn't really have that around us. Most of my family is hardcore drinkers and partiers and adulterers and fornicators, etc. You name it. And so nobody really got saved, and nobody became a Christian that would witness to us. Friends, very rare. And the reality is, you don't hang around those kind of people as well. I think the biggest thing that I saw was someone invited us to a Nicky Cruz movie, Run Baby Run, and or The Cross and the Switchblade, one of those two. And we went down. We walked down to this one place, and we saw the movie. I don't know if we prayed or not, but afterwards there was all kinds of little gangsters, and so we had to run home, getting chased home from that neighborhood.
How old do you think you were when that happened?
I would say I was probably around 11 or 12 when we went down to see the Nicky Cruz movie.
Yeah,
and then we went down to a local
some
theater.
Kind of impact on you because you remembered it.
Yeah, I mean, I did. When I got saved, I totally remember it. So
wow.
It was a seed planted. It was a seed planted, and immediately I go, man, I saw something because my conversion was kind of like his. It was a very powerful conversion as well.
Wow. Okay. So you're getting into your teenage years, and that's a very dangerous time to not have a lot of self-control. So tell us what came next.
Well, like I said, we didn't have much, so we had to steal or do different things just to buy our clothes for the next year. And so I remember my brother had found this place where he could do shoe shine, and he'd make $20 a day, and that was a lot of money to us. And so he left me shoe shining, but it wasn't very glamorous, and so I really didn't want to do it. And but I discovered that I had a knack for breaking into video game machines, and so that was a little more popular. And that I actually began to break into video game machines, and I had a group of kids that would follow me around, and we'd go and we you can make a lot of money in that. So we'd go from 7-Eleven. I went to every 7-Eleven in the city of El Paso and broke into their machines. And every arcade, back in the days when they had arcades, we would break into the machines and we'd make money. And I kind of started getting a following as someone who could make money. And
don't get any ideas, kids.
I know.
There's no cash in those machines
I had
anymore,
a group of kids that always followed me. Yeah, it's all. But I mean, it was, so I'm making money and we're doing that. I actually, but also as you're making money, now you have money to go buy beer and buy drugs. And so I started getting more active in drinking. And 8th grade, I was already an alcoholic. I mean, to the point where, it was affecting me. I just my life was just getting crazy. by eighth grade. We were missing school and just drinking and partying, and they had given a test in order to go enter high school. And when they tested me, I tested into honors classes.
Wow.
And so, but I did so bad my eighth grade year that they wouldn't even give me a chance to try to take summer school to pass, until the counselor looked at my testing and said, "How are you going to test into honors, but you failed miserably?" And they just realized that I needed help, And so they gave me a chance. They sent me to summer school. I was able to pass, and then and I got to high school. But again, I lived this double life, that I was breaking into machines, stealing. We were getting into fights and a lot of gang fights and stuff like that. And so, but and then I would try to do well in school, and that was just a crazy time. Eighth grade was a crazy time for me, until I finally discovered sports. When I that kind of saved me for a time. Sports was like I told you, I was very violent. I would fight on the streets. I had a very bad rep. Nobody would mess with me. And but then I discovered football and wrestling. And in football, when you hurt somebody on a play, people applaud you. In wrestling, when I hurt someone, they applaud me, and I was like, "Wow, I'm not going to jail for this." I had gone to jail for assaults. They had busted me, sent me to juvenile detention center, just like first offenders and stuff like that. Or the cops would always pick us up for that. And then for the first time, the whole crowd is cheering me for hitting somebody really, really hard. So I loved it. Wow. I fell in love with a sport. It was, football is a gladiator sport, and so I was, I started, I really enjoyed it. And the coach became my first male role model that I ever had. This was a militant man, he was ex-military, ran the team militant style, and but taught us things, and won us over. And the kids in my neighborhood couldn't, they hated the sport, but I loved it. So I was the only one from my neighborhood that really made it. And there was a powerful a law that was passed back in my day. It was called the no pass, no play. And so if you didn't pass your classes, you couldn't play the sport. And this really helped me stay focused, because I wanted to play so bad that I would not do anything to hinder that. So I actually started doing well in school, and just so that I can play football after football, so that I can wrestle after wrestling, so I can come back to play football. So, I passed my grades and started actually becoming a very good athlete.
Wow. So I catch a common theme here already, is that you got involved really early in the gangs, and you made a statement because you wanted to be part of something. You wanted to be part of something. I think you said that earlier. And I think that, is it possible that's the same reason that you gravitated to sports as well? Not only the physical activity and the able to hurt people, but you were able to be part of something bigger than yourself. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and I think it's human nature that we want to be accepted, that we want to be, the gangs accepted me. Everyone was like me, so there was no judgment. They accepted me. They became my family. And then you get to sports, and same thing. If you're good in sports, everybody accepts you. The team, our coach really emphasized and taught us team, and we were a part of something greater than yourself, and you escape your life, and you're a team. You're working for something. You're accomplishing something. You have a leader, Even in the gangs, you had a leader that you followed and you listened to, and he kind of led us. And then in sports as well, we had a leader, and we began to follow him and listen to him, and we started trying to do better for ourselves.
Yeah. So how far did the sports take you?
They actually they helped me graduate from high school. First person in my family to graduate from high school and actually decide to go to college. So, which was a huge accomplishment, because everyone around me, just dropped out. My brother dropped out. Nobody would make it. And but sports kept me going. I mean, don't get
tremendous
me
success
wrong.
Story.
Huh?
This is already a tremendous success story. Yeah.
But in the midst of that, I was still messing around, except to where I can control it. I was still breaking into video games, and we graduated. We're going around breaking into cars and stealing stereos. My junior year, we actually committed a few armed robberies.
Oh wow!
But you gotta understand that I wanted to play so bad.
Yeah.
That I would make sure I would not get caught, and so I would plan my robberies. The best way not to get caught is don't do it. But that wasn't my thinking. I needed to do something. So, but I began to plan my crimes real good. One time we actually came out in Crime Stoppers. It's a show where they would recreate the act, and we came out on Crime Stoppers, and we stole anything or everything and anything, and it was, but I just didn't. I would do it, but I would make sure that we wouldn't get caught, so that I can still play sports. I was still fighting. I was still, but it wasn't no longer more of a gang. It was more for the team. Me and the guys on our team, we became such good friends. We kind of weren't a gang, but we would fight as a group as well. And we go to parties and we'd fight and get in trouble. I remember one time I got in such bad trouble that the police came to the school, and but my coaches cared about me, and the principal cared about me to where they helped me, and they set up a payment plan, if you will, so that I could fix this guy's jaw that I had broken.
Oh my gosh.
If not, I would go to jail. And so I said I would pay, and my coaches and my principals helped me, because everybody believed that I could have a future, more so than I did. And they were trying to help me. They just saw a troubled kid, and they're like, okay, let's just try to help him, get him through this. And
they must have seen something in you. They must have seen potential.
Yeah, I think so. They more than I did. They saw it more, and I was a very good athlete. I went to state in wrestling, in football. I was offered a couple scholarships, and I'm not a big guy. I'm 5'6", and back in those days I weighed about 160 pounds, 155, 160, and I got offered a few scholarships.
And apparently you were also a very good thief.
Yeah, I was a very good criminal. No, I was, and it's sad to say, but I actually was a very good criminal, and I never got busted, and I did a lot of stuff. I mean, I broke into vehicles all over El Paso. I broke into dealerships. We were stealing cars, taking them to Mexico to get stripped down, and I mean, it was intense. We were. Like I said, we graduated into a lot of things, and it was, and it's smart criminals are not good, and I was actually a smart young man, and which but it was, it was. I thank God for sports, because they kind of, if not, I would have just gone crazy. I would have really my story would have been a lot different. I never went to jail, and and high school I was able to kind of stay focused, and I finally did graduate. But my mother didn't. I didn't know what to do about the scholarships. I didn't know how I would eat, where I would live, how I would get to the university. So I didn't accept them. And what I did is I walked on to the University of Texas at El Paso, UTEP. That's our university here in El Paso. And I walked on to the football team there. And because I wanted to stay local, and I was scared to leave, and so I stayed local. I would live with my mom. So I would, figure school out, My mom didn't know how to fill out the financial aid paperwork. She didn't know how to. I had to do all that on my own, and so, but I lost my coach, which was kind of like my only, my only fence that kept me from going crazy. And when I lost that, I actually, if you think my life was crazy up till then, it got crazier. It got a lot crazier in college. Yeah. I remember, so like I said, I wasn't a very tall guy or big guy. So when I got to school, our first year, the coach didn't let us play. So he put us on a strength program. And, all we did was lift weights every day, for the first semester. And I met all the football players. But all these football players are from inner cities all over the country. So they're a bunch of knuckleheads like me. And they're asking for where can we find drugs, and if I happen to know anybody. But my family in Mexico were heavily involved in the cartels. And so so I knew, I heard some stories, and I knew that one of my uncles was heavy and big. And so, but I just went up to him and I said, hey, look, I got a bunch of people that want to buy drugs, and he really didn't want to deal with me. So he sent me to one of his lower ranking people. And so I started getting drugs from them. And, they my uncle told them, okay, I'm going to send my nephew, take care of them. So they were able to sell to me, and I come and sell to the football players. And, in the beginning, like I said, I had a dream of succeeding. I didn't really want to fail in life. And I knew that my lifestyle was going to fail. I was going to end up in jail. And so college was, okay, I'm gonna succeed, I'm gonna do this. But I still needed to survive. And so I saw the drug dealing as okay, that way I can make some money and pay for my stuff and buy whatever I need. And in the beginning, that's what it was. But as people found out that I can get drugs and that I can get quantities, some of them would ask me, hey man, let's, we can send, I started with small bags, and then before you know it, they're asking, hey man, we could send a pound to New York and make a lot of money, like 4 times what we would make here in El Paso. So I started doing that. And then before you know it, I was pushing a lot of drugs. And my uncle, saw that I had started doing a lot. So he recruited me and said, look, I got some more work for you. He says, if you want, you can transport the drugs from Mexico into El Paso. And so that's what I started doing. He hired me, and I had, like I told you, I always had a following. I was always a leader, and so I always had young guys around me. And so I started, we would go to Mexico. Back in those days, everybody from El Paso, you could be 16, 15 and go to Mexico and drink. So there was nightclubs all across on the other side of the border. So all these young kids were going over, and they would come back drunk. So I would send them, and they would come back in their vehicles loaded with drugs, and they wouldn't check them. So that became my job, is the transportation from Mexico to El Paso, and
For
that's where I
logistics.
started developing a name. Yeah, logistics. That's what it was, and I began to develop a name for myself, and so obviously I did well to where my uncle, more people started asking for me. Hey, man, we got this, and all the higher ups saw that I had a good crew, so they started hiring us, and every weekend we were passing 1,000 pounds of marijuana over the bridge.
Oh my
And
gosh! Wow.
yeah, and so, and then, and then I still started making connections up in upstate New York, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Philadelphia, Cincinnati. And so, we were going up and taking the drugs and making money. I was selling, but I also was in charge of transportation. And then they hired me. The cartel actually hired me to not only bring from Mexico to the U.S., but from the U.S. to distribute. They had a network of cities all over the U.S. And so I kind of became in charge of the distribution. So, importing
Wow.
and then distributing it all over the U.S. And so, I'm 19 years old, 20 years old. I'm making more money than I can spend. So what do I need college for? And so I ended up quitting college, quitting the team, and went, full force into another organized group where
Wow.
they accepted me, where they respected me, and I was part of,
And you were doing
like you
well.
said, it is a common. Yeah, I'm 19 years old, 20 years old. I have a crew. They used to call us the Mustang crew because I bought all my guys a Mustang 5.0. Those little GT Mustangs, and but that was what they used to transport. And so the group that I was with, young kids in the clubs spending money, got very popular, and I'm 19 years old, and I'm sending kids all over the U.S. I'm going up there as well. I would fly up there when they would take the stuff, and we'd hang out, and crazy, but we'd be up there in Pittsburgh in the middle of the city drinking, just going crazy, doing some crazy things, getting in a lot of trouble too. Many times our lives were in danger. We got into quite a bit of trouble, and and like I said, we had so much money. By then, we were making a lot of money, more than we could spend. Once you get into that lifestyle, you realize you can't spend it. You got to be very careful. And you always have mentors that help you and teach you how you can buy things, what you can do. And so, yeah, I became very good at it. And we were, 20-year-olds, just flying all over the place, going to Vegas, Atlantic City, South Padre, going to, just drinking, partying. And so, we thought we were living life, to the fullest. And but unfortunately, with that lifestyle come out the consequences. So I was an athlete. So
I was going to ask you. It's dangerous to kind of look back at that, and with all the success that you've described, and to describe it as almost a glamorous lifestyle, and to the world that it's like, hey, what's wrong with that? That sounds pretty good to me. But I'm sure there was a price that you had to pay. So yeah, what was that like?
Yeah, and like you said, looking outside, looking in, it was very glamorous. We young kids had it all, but as an athlete, I wouldn't do drugs, and I saw my friends really destroying their lives because of drugs. So I made sure that my guys and myself, we wouldn't do drugs so that we can stay focused. But you can't live in life and not do it. It's just, it comes hand in hand. So you're going to start trying your own stuff. You're going to experiment on your own. And, before you know it, I'm doing cocaine. And like I said, I was an alcoholic since I was a young kid. And so now I'm drinking and doing cocaine and find out that the cocaine allows me to drink for days at a time. It was no brainer. But if you're drinking and partying that much, you're not going to be as good anymore. Right. So before you know it, a lot of my guys started getting popped. So, I'm losing loads of, big quantities. So I'm losing a lot of money. Things are happening. And when somebody gets caught, the police start following them, and so one of my guys, I remember, he got caught and they forced him, or they kind of coerced him to narc us out. So now you have betrayals. The police know who you are now. So they were actually after me for a long time. I'm to the point where they were tailing me. They were following me. It was pretty intense. And then, on top of that, I started, I'm supposed to take a load for somebody, 500 pounds to Denver, and we get caught. So now it's like, well, why did you get caught? So people are getting mad at me. And so the higher ups are like, what's going on? And I had a horrible situation, and I can't explain it, but they caught us with 500 pounds. But on the docket, when they give you the paperwork, it said only 250. So the people, I would always have to bail out my guys, but I would have to show paperwork to the people. And when they read that, they're like, well, what's going on here? Why is there 250 when we gave you 500? So now they think I stole. So now, we're having some trouble. I remember I started making bad deals. I got robbed on a cocaine deal. I got robbed and someone gave me money to buy him cocaine. I bought it, made my cut, gave him the cocaine. It wasn't cocaine. So now I owe this guy a lot of money. And so, I've been losing loads. I didn't have the money to pay him. And I didn't want to pay him, to be honest. I was like, well, we lost the money, And so now people are after me. There was a couple situations where they came to kill me. We were involved in shootouts. They came to my house one time to kill me, but they didn't find me. They found one of my friends, and they started shooting my friend. He ran. Our pit bull got shot, got killed, and the guy just destroyed our house. And but this is interesting because by then my brother had become a Christian.
Oh wow! How did that?
So
happen?
My brother had gone to church and got saved with his wife, and they were newly married, and he went and got saved, and that was exactly the same time that I began to deal drugs. So our lives totally separated.
Wow.
And
how much older than you is he?
He's 3.5 years older.
Okay.
So he had gotten married, and went to church, was trying to start a family, and he would witness to me all the time. Sometimes when we would be in Mexico at the nightclubs, the door or pastor would show up and street preach, and everybody come and tell me, your brother's outside. I would get so mad at him. I was like, what are you doing in my place? Go to your own church. You're embarrassing me. And it was so funny. But they were witnessing to me, and they got to know me, and so they knew who I was. And there was this one guy who would actually follow up on me, and he would go, and I thought he was the weirdest person in the world. And he would follow up on me, and he'd visit me, and I had drugs in the house, and I didn't want to let him in, so I just kind of brush him off or ignore him. But this is what's funny though, is that and I share this in my testimony when I preach out, is so here this guy comes to kill me, kills our dog, shoots my friend, gets a few shots of pellets, not a lot, destroys one side of the house. So what do? Is I call all my friends, get more guns, get more different, we're gonna fight, we're gonna go to war. And so that night nothing happens. The next day, people are hanging out at my house. Everybody, my house is a party house, so everybody's hanging out. And but I leave. I don't know what I was doing. And when I left, it was during the day. The guy came again, and this time some of my friends, one of them ran out and shot at his car with a shotgun. But it hit the back windshield, but it locked. By then, the guy was able to stop and pulls out his own shotgun. And one of my friends took shots, but his gun jammed. I don't understand what happened. I wasn't there. And the other guy got out of his car and began to shoot at them. And they ran into the house, locked the house, and the guy just began to shoot through every window. It was just a war. I mean, this guy destroyed both sides of the house. These guys ran in, jumped in the tub to try to, not get sprayed with bullets. And they called the police. They called the police. Hey, somebody's trying to kill us. I mean, to get this guy off of them. So guy leaves. Police come. They're looking for whoever's shooting at us. They know that we got shot the day before, so they're on alert. So the third day, I'm upset. I go buy more guns. I get more people, and we're there. We're not leaving. We're gonna wait for this guy. And so it's getting late. We're drinking. We're smoking, and a car pulls up in front of my house, and I send guys out through one side, and they're about to start shooting. We're gonna go out through the front door and start shooting, and it's gonna be a war. But I look at the guy when he gets off his car, and it's not that guy. And I tell the guys, wait. I know this guy. And it was a man by the name of Freddie Lozano from the El Paso Church. This guy was the number one soul winner in the El Paso Church. Wow. At his funeral, Pastor Stevens asked, how many people did Freddie influence? And there was about 300 people. So many people this guy had won or influenced. I'm talking about missionaries, pastors, you name it. This guy, incredible love for the lost. And he found out that they were trying to kill me. And he came to witness to me. Wow. And I mean, he gave me a hard witness. He came into our home. I mean, he's out of his element, He got saved when he was a teen. He's an adult now, but he's freaking out at this lifestyle. But he's going to witness to me. And he witnessed to me and all my friends. We have guns, we're drinking, and I don't know what he thought. But he begins to share the gospel. And, I told him I wasn't ready. And because he asked us if we wanted to pray. And I said, no. And everybody followed my lead. And later on, he tells me that he wanted to slap me. He says, you're about to die. And you don't want to get saved. But he gave me a very strong witness, and that was that really impacted me, that this guy, why would he come knowing that, just talk about a love for the lost, and, but that's what my life was getting to. And so everywhere I go, people are trying to hurt me. The police are after me. They're trying to infiltrate our group, my uncles, and, I was the link to it, to the Mexican cartel. And so they're following me, and, they're busting us, and it's getting pretty hectic. And I don't know what to do. And I went to my brother's house, And he gave me a witness that Christ was the answer. But I was a little proudful and arrogant, and I said, "No, I'm going to fix my life. I don't need your God to fix it. I'll fix it." So what I did is yeah. And my answer was, you know what? I'm going to move to Denver, stay low for a few months. You know, by then I had already bought a home, paid for it cash. I had a business that would launder money by then. So I had, you know, I was doing well, but I figured, okay, well, I'll just go away and stay low for a little bit. And, you know, I'll still run this chapter, but from Denver. And I'm gonna clean up. I'll be over there. I'm gonna get sober. You know, I was tired of the cocaine and the drinking. I said, I'm gonna clean myself up. And I went to Denver, but the problem was that I took myself with me.
Of course, right.
The problem wasn't the city. The problem was in the mirror. Yeah. And I got to Denver, same thing. I said I was going to lay low. I got bigger. I got worse. I mean, I just started running everything from over there and doing more stuff over there. Wow. And I would come in, I would sneak into El Paso, take a load up to Denver. You know, I would get my guys and take a load up and then get rid of all that over there, thousands of pounds of marijuana. And you know, it got worse. It just got worse. And, you know, one time I was in Denver, I had nothing to do. I was just sitting at home. So I just said, I'm going to go to Vegas. So I drove myself to the airport and bought a ticket, went to Vegas, went gambling for a couple of days, came back home, flew back, got in my car, and I drove to my house. And by the time I got to my house, all I see is police line. They had raided my home when I wasn't there. So I just kept going straight, never looked back.
Wow.
Left Denver and never went back again. And so,
have you preached in Denver since this?
Man, I just preached for the very first time about 6 months ago.
Did they still have a warrant waiting for you?
Man, the last time I was here, cops were after me. And
oh my gosh.
I stayed away from Denver. I would not go preach in Denver. You know, it took me about 28 years to get back.
There's probably some guy still looking for you.
Oh my gosh. It was a rude awakening.
Yeah.
I leave Denver, go back to El Paso. You know, my life is getting worse. You know, I have money. I have power. I have everything I can buy, but I'm not happy. You know, I'm getting to a point where, like, you know what? If people want to kill me, let's do this. You know, I didn't care. I really didn't care. Got to a point where, to be honest, I wanted to go out. I said, I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory. You know, I'm not going to go to jail. I'm going to go out shooting. And that was my intent. So I always carried a gun. Couldn't sleep at night again. I was still really addicted to cocaine and alcohol. So, just my life is a mess, you know, and, on top of that, my uncles get caught with, coming down with $1 million. And, so they get caught. So now I'm left to run the family's business. And so now I got to take care of their families. I got to take care of the business. And so, but I'm out of control. I don't know what to do. And the police are after me. You know, I found out years later that they had built a case against me and they were really after me. And so I don't know what to do, man. I don't know what to do. At the time, I had 3 guys and they had gotten caught. You know, and when you check a border, either you cross from El Paso to another city or interstate, or you cross Mexico to El Paso, those are federal offenses. So 3 of my guys got caught in different places, and they're all doing time in a jail here called Biggs Field, and it's a Biggs Federal Penitentiary. And but the federal penitentiary here was kind of kicked back to where I was actually, I would go visit them, and I take them food, or I take them out sometimes to go eat, or take them to their girlfriend's house, whatever. It was pretty laid back, The way that it works is if you're in Biggs Field and you're a trustee, they let you go to Fort Bliss and cut the grass at the military base. But that's where they had an office, and that's where I would go and hang out with them. And I would visit them, and make sure they were taken care of. But then I had this genius. I was so smart. I had this incredible plan of how to fix my life. And I decided that I was going to go to the federal penitentiary for 6 months to fix my life. And that was my solution.
That was your path.
That was how smart I was. I'm going to go to jail for 6 months. And so that was my plan. And so what I did is I developed a plan. Again, I was a thinker. So I developed a plan. I said, okay, I'm going to go to jail, but I'm not going to start from the bottom, because there's ranking in the jail too. So I'm going to start up at the top, I'm not, nobody, I'm going to go be, start at the top. So what I did is I started getting my guys drugs, and they would sneak it in, and they're selling. And then, we met people, and I'm doing favors, and, they needed this, they needed that back over here. I would help them. I would take stuff in, whatever they needed, and just whatever was needed. So this was my plan. And, I'm tired. My guys had gotten clean, were lifting weights again, losing weight, and getting big, and so I was like, man, it's like a fitness camp. That's where I'm gonna go, and so I'm working on this plan, right? And one day I show up to the office, and I brought them food and everything, and but then there was these 2 Christians that were working with my friends. They were all cutting the grass. And so when they went into the office, I take food for everyone. And one of my friends told them, hey, he's trying to get in here. What does he need to do? And the guy had figured out, okay, if you want to be in for 6 months only, get caught with a stolen credit card, and that's your sentence. Perfect. I mean, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate all the info. And then he told me, but Angel, you're not going to fix your life. Says, this is not going to help you. You're going to die, and you're going to go to hell. And when he told me this, man, it was like, you don't talk to me like that. If you knew who I was, you don't, I tell everybody, man, I'm 5'6", but back in those days, I was about 6'4". And so he told me, but my only answer was like, what? I'm a Catholic. And he goes, Angel, it doesn't matter what church or religion you belong to. Unless you're born again, you may not enter the kingdom of God. And I said, well, my brothers are born again. He says, it doesn't matter who you know, Angel. You need to give your life to Jesus, or you're going to die and go to hell. You're not going to fix anything. And I was a little upset, Yeah. And I just heard him, and I left mad. Like, who does this guy think he is to tell me I'm going to hell? So I called my brother. So now I'm looking for my brother, right? And long story, man, but I can't get a hold of him. 5:30 comes around. I mean, God was trying to get a hold of me. This is in the morning or at lunch. Can't get a hold of my brother. Go home. I'm falling asleep on my couch. Turn on the TV, dozing in and out. And all of a sudden, a news comes out. And I was falling asleep, and I kind of opened my eyes, and I saw my picture on TV. And it said, and I just heard wanted. That's all I heard. And I freaked out, man. Story ends. So I changed the channel, get to another channel, and there I am again. So now I'm like, oh my gosh. I get up. I begin to call my friends. I tell them, look, dude, everybody, Mexico, we need to get out. And I hang up. And back in those days, I had a cell phone. Those big old giant cell phones, man. They were.
Oh wow!
You were really cool with. I was one of the first people to have them. My phone finally rings, and it's my brother. And he goes, "Angel, are you okay?" I says, "Yes. Why?" And he says, "Robert Correa just called me." Robert Correa went to school with me. He's a pastor now in Houston. He was a missionary to Chile, and he's pastoring a church in Houston now. And but he went to school with me, and he was a Christian with my brother. Wow. He hadn't seen me in 3 years, but he saw me on TV and called my brother, and told him that I was on television, that they busted me. So I tell my brother, look, I'll call you back. Let me take care of some things. I'm calling all my guys. I'm making sure everything's taken care of, you know. And so I don't know what to do, so I take off, but I'm curious as to what's going on. So I told all my guys to go to Mexico. We could just drive over. And but I stopped. I said, you know what? I'm gonna go hide out until 10. I went and hid at a friend's house, and I was waiting for the news to come out again. And this time the news comes out, and I hear the news, and it's saying that they were after this organization for 3 years. They finally caught them, and they're in custody. And they show the picture, but this time it doesn't look anything like me. So it's not me. And I'm like, what in the world? So I saw myself. Robert Correa saw me, but it wasn't me. And man, now I'm shook.
So it was. You think that it was somebody that resembled you, maybe?
Didn't even resemble me. The second time didn't even look. It was just I can't explain.
So you
but by then,
what, am I hearing then? I think what you're saying is that you think that God put your image on the screen or made you to see yourself on that news report.
I don't know. I can't. I don't know. But I thought it was me. And Robert Correa thought it was me, that he called my brother, and my brother called me.
Yeah.
And so, I believe that God was trying to get a hold of me.
For sure.
That night, I told my brother, I need to talk to you. From there, I drove straight to his house. And funny thing was, as I'm driving to his house, I know his house like the back of my hand. Couldn't find it. I kept getting lost.
Oh, wow.
Finally make it to his house. I walk in. I tell him what happened, that these guys told me I'm going to hell. He looks at me and says, Angel, they're right. Tell him everything that happened. And he just begins to witness to me now. And he actually played a sermon by Pastor Lamb, Today is the Day of Salvation. And I listened to it.
Wow.
At the end of it, Pastor Lamb calls an altar call. My brother goes, you want to pray? And I said, yeah. And man, God touched me that evening. I mean, wow. God healed me, delivered me from drugs and alcohol. I mean, God totally set me free, man. Totally set me free that day. It was supernatural experience with God. It was a Saul of Tarsus moment.
Wow.
And God touched me that evening and set me free.
So this is when I hear a story like that, when you had that experience, you cried out to God. I'm curious, did you sense anything? Did you feel anything? Like, how did you know that something had changed in you?
you know, I'm a tough guy. I'm a gangster, you know, and I began to bawl like you wouldn't believe. I was crying like it was uncontrollable.
Wow.
So here it's 11:30 now at night. I don't know what's happening. I really don't know what's happening. I just know that God touched me. My brother goes, Angel, you're a new man. You're forgiven. I told him, Carlos, I've done stuff. I don't know if God can forgive me. And he goes, Angel, you're forgiven. And I believed him. I just trusted him. But I didn't want to go home. I didn't know what to do. And so I said, hey, man, do you mind if I stay the night? And he says, yeah, and he gave me his son's room. And he gave me a Bible to read. So I'm thinking, well, like I told you, my life has gotten really out of control. I can't sleep. I sleep with a gun, and I can't sleep. I need to drink or do drugs to fall asleep because I can't. I just can't. I have too many problems. And I told my brother, well, I can't sleep, Carlos. Maybe tell me what to read in the Bible, or I'll read the Bible tonight. I'll read the whole thing. You know, and he goes, well, you know, just read the book of John. All right. I go to the bed, and I'm like, okay, I can't sleep, you know, so I start reading the Bible, and I start dozing off. I was like, oh my gosh, I barely asked Christ, and now I'm falling asleep on the Bible. I'm already feeling convicted. So sure enough, I fall asleep for the first time in 4 years. I slept like never before. I woke up the next morning and I knew something had happened. I've never felt a peace like that. You know, the Bible says that there's a peace that he gives us that surpasses all understanding. I felt the peace of God to where I woke up the next day and I knew I was forgiven. I felt clean. I felt the weight of my sin had been taken off. And, you know, I don't know what to do. So I tell my brother, hey, do you mind if I just hang out with you? So I went to his work. It was Tuesday night, October 19th, that I prayed that sinner's prayer, 1993. And the next day was Wednesday. I went to work with him, and that night I went to church. The pastor preached the sermon, and when he pulled the altar call, I didn't raise my hand. I knew I was already saved.
Wow.
And I was like, you know, this is cool. You know, I'm fine. Freddie Lozano comes up to me, and I told him, I prayed last night, you know, gave my life. He says, oh, that's awesome, Angel. He says, but you know what? Why don't we pray and make a public declaration before man? And he took me to the altar, and he prayed another sinner's prayer with me. And man,
wow,
been transformed ever since.
That's amazing. Do you know why that's so significant? Because you had lived a life of chaos and, you know, running from the law and running from God ultimately, and doing a lot of things that you knew was evil, right? And you go to your brother's house, you pray a prayer. You have done nothing for Jesus, right? You didn't help an old lady cross the street, right? I mean, you live a life of what the world would say is pretty evil, and you have done nothing good for God, but you felt such peace and such transformation and such being cleansed and purified. Like, that is not something that comes from this world, right? That is the peace of God that changes people.
Yep. And I, you know, and I knew I didn't deserve it, but I knew God gave it to me.
Yeah.
But I knew. I just knew that I was forgiven and that I was a new person, you know. I don't know how. I didn't know scripture. I didn't know doctrine. All I knew is that my brother said, I'm saved and I'm forgiven. And I just believed him. And it was
the beginning of a new life for you, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. That was the beginning of incredible new life for me.
Well, I wonder if you would take the opportunity to take this moment, hearing this amazing testimony, And if there's someone that's listening to this that is confused or lost, not knowing what the next step is, not knowing if there is a God or if there's any place for them in his kingdom, I wonder if you would speak to them for a few moments.
Well, I believe that I'm not the only one that has gone through this. I believe that, there's many people that are hearing right now, and you're lost just like I was, looking for answers, looking to be accepted, trying to find, a family, trying to find love, addicted maybe. If God can forgive me, if God can heal me, if God cared enough for me that he reached me, you know what? God wants to do the same for you. He will forgive you. He will give you a brand new life. He will bring a peace into your heart, into your mind that surpasses all understanding, and he will change you into a new creation and give you another chance at life. And that's what God gave me, and he'll give to anyone that's out there listening. And all you got to do is one simple prayer, asking Christ to come into your heart, forgiving you of your sin, and changing, accepting the sacrifice that he paid on that cross for your sins.
And it's not like you had a theological degree, right? You said, I didn't understand anything about what was happening. All you knew was that your sins had been forgiven and you had a new start. You didn't need to understand everything. This is something that it gets in the way for a lot of people, including myself, is if I don't understand something, I'm hesitant to jump into it. And that was a real hindrance for me as a new convert. But the Bible says, lean not on your own understanding. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart. And when you jump into that, Jesus died for everybody, including gangbangers and cartel drug dealers, And so
yeah.
If the sacrifice was enough to, in a moment of time, to cleanse all of that, away in just a moment of time, then, what's stopping you from trusting him with your life? That's very powerful.
Yeah.
So, this is not the end of the story. This is only the beginning. That was the birthday into the kingdom of God. But we're going to take a quick break here, and we're going to hear about this transformed life and where God led you next. We're going to hear about your discipleship days. No doubt there's a marriage, a courtship and a marriage story coming up, and then there's discipleship and ministry. And so, but if you want to hear that part of the story, we want to encourage you to become a premium subscriber. So we're going to take a quick break for premium subscribers. We'll be right back with the rest of that story. And if you are still on the free plan, we thank you for listening. We would ask you humbly to consider joining the premium community for $3 a month, and you will get a whole bunch of sermons and a bunch more of awesome testimonies like this. Everything is going to world evangelism. So we appreciate you listening, and we'll see you on the other side.
Hi, I'm Mike Ashcraft, pastor currently in Van Nuys, California. Pastor, man of God, your wife left everything to follow you in your dream. Are you going to leave her with nothing? The Bible says, he who doesn't provide for his own is worse than an unbeliever and has denied the faith. As men of God, we're ready to stand before God due to tragedy at any moment's notice. But what about our families? What happens to them if we were to die? There's an easy financial solution so that they don't have to go through poverty or destitution. Call me today, 310-403-6471. That's 310-403-6471.